The worst thing you can do is just wait, and then you get to the point where I need to leave, and then
that unhappiness is taken over you. Hi, thanks for returning for our second episode, where we're going to be discussing everything around returning to work after having a long period off and how to ask for that pay increase. I'm Claire.
And I'm Simon. And today we're having the conversation people usually want to have after hours.
So Simon, we've all had that holiday where we've had a really good break, but it's coming up to that first day back at work and we've got that dread, that awful feeling. It doesn't feel right. So today I'd like to talk about that and really dig into those emotions behind the holiday blues, is it called? Or the returning to work fears?
Or in Australia, they call it the 2-week drinking extravaganza.
Oh, even better.
It is a real disconnection, isn't it? Really, it can be, or it's supposed to be.
And sometimes they feel really confused because they're thinking they need a change in their careers, but it could be something else. It could be something personal. There's a lot of emotions behind it.
There is. And I think, it's interesting. A lot of people over the break really ask themselves those questions like, where am I going? Where's my career going? You've actually got that time to...
Who am I?
Unwind. You get to unwind and probably take a step back and ask yourself those questions. And a lot of people have had that time to come back into work, spend a couple of weeks in the office and either go, I'm really excited, or I actually need to find something more challenging, or I need to mix my career up. I need to do something different, or I need to find a new norm.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are really uncomfortable with uncomfortable conversations. So a lot of the people that we do talk to, I think one of my first questions is always, have you actually sat down with your manager, your leader, someone in the business to flesh out your feelings of what's here for me this year? I'm feeling a little bit of a disconnection, or I want more. Really having that solid conversation with their manager to see if there's any opportunities for that. Because what I see a lot of is people don't have those conversations and just decide to leave their job. But there is so much value in giving your manager the opportunity to really flesh out how you're feeling, because they could have an opportunity right around the corner that's perfect for you. Or at least, even if they don't have it now, it could be there in 6 months.
So what advice do you give candidates when they ask you, when they say to you, I'm thinking about leaving, and you ask them the question, have you spoken to your leader, or do they know how you feel? And they say, no, I haven't, or they don't, or they think they don't know how they feel. What advice do you give them?
I think there's two sides to this. I mean, it's amazing how commonly I hear that people haven't had to sit down with their manager in over a year or over 6 months, a review, a reset. I mean, I say to those people, make sure you communicate how important that is, that connection piece of really understanding, hey, this time last year I was in this place and this is what was going to motivate me and what I was really desiring out of 2025. In 2026, this is the impact I want to make this year. So sit down with your manager and have that really great conversation. It doesn't have to be a threat. I think I'm leaving if you don't give me this. It's, hey, I really want to grow this year and the areas I want to grow in is this, this and that. Or, hey, I've been on the same salary for 3 years and I feel like my role has grown and I'm adding more value. The value that I'm adding for you is this, this and this compared to 3 years ago. Can we please have a review of my salary? Have those conversations. And sometimes putting that effort into developing where you're at, those relationships, those opportunities is your biggest opportunity. And I think, so really encouraging direct conversations, honest conversations, and have the trust that your manager will really listen and take it on board and be grateful.
It's a really interesting point, because what we spoke about in our last podcast was about leadership and how challenging leadership can be. And as leaders, this is where we kind of pressure ourselves to go, we feel we need to know how our people are feeling. We feel that we need to understand where they're at all the time. And it is hard. And particularly when we talk about this time of the year, as a leader, if someone came to me and told me things that I didn't already know, I'd feel like I'd missed something.
You just got to ask those very valuable questions. So in 2025, if you could have changed anything in your role here, what would it be? In 2026, what would you like to have achieved by the time we're sitting here in 12 months' time? What does mentoring and development mean for you this year?
Or a role that you don't want because you're getting pushed down a path.
And what are your biggest learnings?
Yeah. What would you want, like one of our people to do before they had one of those conversations with you, one of those vulnerable conversations? What kind of preparation would you think or hope or expect that they've gone through?
Preparation for those conversations are really important because you want to come across with the right energy about it. It's not a negative conversation. It can be a very, very positive conversation if you're prepared. So the preparation I'd be recommending is, if it is around you wanting your role to change, what exactly are the parts that you're looking to develop in? Where are the opportunities for growth for you? What do you see other people doing that you really want to start learning? So be very specific about, this is where I want to take. If you just turn up and say, I don't know, but I just want something different, it's very hard for people to help you.
Yeah.
So specific examples of what difference are you seeking? What growth? What learning? What course? So be really prepared with that data around what needs to change. If it's your pay, if you feel like you're not at the right pay level for your position, then come with that data.
Yeah.
You know, there is a lot of roles on Seek that are advertised with the data of salaries attached to them. It could be, okay, I've been paid $100,000 for the last 3 years. My role difference from 3 years ago to what I'm delivering in value for this organisation is this, bang, bang and bang. Due to that, I feel like I've taken on 20% extra responsibilities and I feel like that should be reflected in my salary. Can we have a good conversation around that?
It's sometimes it's not always pay rises. It can be non-monetary things.
Absolutely.
Like, what are the non-monetary things that you can offer someone? And I think even when you do offer them something and both parties are feeling like there's a great win for each party, then the question is, as an individual, where do they want to be in the next 12 months as well? Like, what are those goals? So that you just don't, you take on something, you take on more, but then you don't want to be either party be dissatisfied in 6 months' time. It's like, well, what are the goals for the next 12 months? So they've got something to strive towards?
Yes, I think there's three main reasons why people leave a role. It can be salary, but I always say money takes you to an opportunity. It doesn't keep you there. So that extra 10 or 15 grand gets easily forgotten about after 6 months. So it's not really usually about salary.
Yeah.
Opportunity. So people feeling stagnant. There isn't that growth. And there isn't those great conversations with their leader to actually understand what opportunities there are for them. And thirdly, I think it is really that mentoring and development, that lack of feedback, that lack of mentoring, that lack of development. I mean, everybody gets busy in their day-to-day jobs and managers really need to take that responsibility that they are there to continuously be offering that development and opportunity in mentoring.
So, Claire, when somebody has that conversation about their career, where they want to go, what they want to achieve this year, so they find that level of confidence to do that, and they get a good connection with their manager and discuss these things, where to from here? Because, 2 weeks goes quickly, then 2 weeks turns into 4 months, something's not happening. What's your advice?
There can be two kind of responses from the manager. Unfortunately, the negative one where they might go, oh, you want more? Everybody always wants more. Instead of, thank you so much for talking to me.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing how you're feeling and what you're looking for in this year. So let's focus on hey, they didn't get the right response. Yeah, we'll come back to you. Leave it with me. 2 months has passed by and nothing's happened.
We'll get to it.
You try and approach the conversation again and it just kind of gets fobbed off a bit. So at that point, you have made the effort. You have been honest and stepped forward and proactive, and that's great. And if you're left feeling like, nothing is happening or it isn't changing or the opportunity isn't there, then it's time to look. And that can be, that first step can be really daunting because your job can be your family, your home. You've connected with people. I met a lot of people that don't want to leave just because of the friendship groups they've had at work.
Yeah, it can be very disruptive, disruptive.
So it's a big decision and it's very emotional and it's a roller coaster. So I always advise candidates to start looking at Seek and just start reading a lot of job ads and thinking, oh, that sounds exciting, save that. Oh, really don't like that one. put it over there, and start categorizing the ones that stand out for you. And before you know it, you'll see a theme of the kind of roles that you get that gut feeling and that excitement about and that opportunity. And I always recommend that as a first step, just to help guide you in what is possibly out there.
You made a good point too before about candidates when they come to the decision they want to start looking. You know, we deal with a lot of passive candidates, but you mentioned about, you know, just taking anything or just taking the first role, which as much as when you get to that point, there's something that comes out of you when you go into an interview, when you're feeling like that. And we can groom and coach and mentor someone as much as we can, but still, if you get to that point when you get to an interview, it can come out and it can really be quite off-putting. And people don't realise, like, they can become so unhappy in their current roles that they don't even realise in just general chit-chat that it's actually coming out. And you never want to get to that point. And that's, I think, a really good point. When you start to get that feeling about, do I want to look? It might be more of a, I do want to look, or it might be a validation that I actually am happy in my role. But the worst thing you can do is just wait, and then you get to the point where I need to leave, and then
that unhappiness is taken over you, and it bleeds out in your interviews. And it could be just that you want to change industry. So, for example, you know, we support a lot of professionals coming out of the mining industry that want to now change working for that industry. They want to feel ethical about a certain industry, like they might want to work for renewables, or we do get a lot of interest in that industry. So it could be just that you want to change industries. It doesn't have to be a major change. You could do the same role. So that preparation, that time, you have to give yourself time. I always say it's a full-time job, getting a job. So time, give yourself the respect of really spending time on working out what your motivations are, where you want to see yourself. And then it's really hugely beneficial to come and see a professional recruitment company, to sit down and really flesh out what that process looks like, what organisations out there that might hold those opportunities. Are you looking for a close-knit small organisation or a large organisation with lots of development opportunities into leadership or different secondments, for example? As I said, professional recruitment companies will give you a lot of insight into the market. They'll know what companies have the right opportunities for you as well. So do all of those steps before you start.
I think it's fair to say too, like, with us, it's very common that people will come and see us and they have aspirations, like you said, to get into a new sector, like renewables, for example, but there might be some gaps there in helping identify what those gaps are. So if you want to go down that path, this is what I would suggest you do now to help you go down that path, rather than just have an aspiration of getting into a new sector, because you might have transferable skills, but there might be some other gaps you have that you don't realise. And it's really important to identify those or work towards those gaps so that you become much more transitional as time goes on.
Yeah, and you know, somebody might not have come into the job market for 10 years, a decade. So what we can use now in AI or researching them on their social media is very different to 10 years ago.
Very much so.
Also do a spot check of what your social media looks like. Make sure it's professional, because people are going to be looking you up. We've had numerous times where clients have looked somebody up on Facebook and went, I'm not sure about this person anymore. So be very clean around what your social media looks like.
You see this a lot too when people have a Facebook account, which might be old and they haven't really paid much attention to it anymore, and then it comes back to haunt them. You know, so they might have everything else really professional, LinkedIn and every other media that they're using professional, but there's this one area that they've just left unattended, and it could be just that one time, and then it can come and backfire.
And as we know, a lot of jobs don't come onto the market. It's who you know. So I always try to educate my professionals that come to us for support to really think about, how are you networking yourself? And to a lot of people, it's not natural. But if you are comfortable with networking, making sure that you're getting out to the relevant networking opportunities and start connecting with people in this region, because there's a huge amount of knowledge and value you get out of those networking opportunities that you can bring into your interviews. Hey, it was really lovely to meet you, or did you see this networking event? And really bringing that knowledge and passion into your research around that organisation. So there's a lot to do at the beginning, but if you do it right, you will give yourself the best chance to land in a fantastic opportunity.
I think too, surrounding yourself with the best networkers as well, because if you're not a good networker, it's not natural to you, going to a networking event and introducing yourself to people can be daunting.
Yeah.
Can be really daunting. But when you see the people who know how to do it well and you connect with them and ask them, even ask them, I love how you present yourself at networking events. Can I be your wing person? Anyone, would feel a sense of gratitude if somebody recognised their skill and can pass it on to somebody else. I think that's, and as a Newcastle community, I think we're large, but we're a small enough business community where people want to help each other.
Yeah, so in summary, give it time. Respect the time that you need to give to your career to set yourself up for success. So spending that time at the beginning, really working through what you're looking for is really important. So you've got clarity. Secondly, do your research. Do your research on the industry, meet with professional recruiters, get their knowledge, really ask a lot of questions so that you walk out armed with a huge amount of information around what are the opportunities out there for someone like you with your skills and experience. And thirdly, that branding piece, that social media, that networking, make sure that you're really focusing on that to give that absolute professionalism to the market.
For our listeners out there who are new to this, how would you recommend they connect, which recruiter they connect with? Like there's recruiters out there who might have been recruiting their space for maybe 18 months. They might be still getting an understanding of their market, and that's great. There are people who are still developing, but then there's those ones who have been doing it for years in their space. And even when you look at those recruiters, how do you pick the right one? What would be your advice?
Well, I find it really interesting that no one ever kind of references us. So they don't say, tell me about you. Why should I come and put my career in your hands? Tell me about your experience in my field, in my industry. Nobody ever asks those questions. So I would definitely say, I'd call the recruitment agency saying, this is my background. I'm a finance professional. I want to understand who you have in the business that is a finance professional recruitment consultant that knows my industry, that's been in the industry, that can really guide me.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like a real estate agent, you ask them how long have they been selling homes or how do they know your market, and it's your biggest asset. You put your trust in them, and your next biggest asset or bigger asset is your career. And you want to ask those questions
But
like,
they don't.
am I partnering with the right person?
Yeah, exactly. So really do your research and actually look at them on their socials, look at them on their LinkedIn. Everything's there these days, so it's hard to hide from it. So I absolutely recommend making sure that you're speaking to a recruiter that's been in your industry for a minimum of 3 years, because they will have the networks, the connections and the knowledge.
So Claire, we've addressed the people who've just come back, the new year, new you scenario. What about the longer termers? So the ones who are coming back from mat leave, or the ones that have been travelling either around Australia or even overseas. What about those ones?
Yeah, a completely different scenario. So I guess what's important, first of all, is to identify the trends that we see or the communication or the feelings. And I'd nail it with the word confidence. How often have we met with females that have had a year to 3 years off on maternity leave, doing the most important job in the world, being a mum? When they come and see us, it's amazing how their confidence has dropped, how they a lot of the time feel like they need to drop 20% in salary to 30% just to get their foot back in the door. To the people that have travelled around the world and might have taken 18 months off or around Australia, or to the professionals that move here from the UK or wherever that haven't got that Australian experience, what's our advice to them? So first of all, I think it's really important to identify, if their industry has changed at all. So marketing is a really good industry to say, look, digital, it's transforming all the time, rapidly, so fast. So if you've had 3 years out of that industry, that's a huge amount of change.
Yeah.
So really it's about talking to them about, okay, what training can you do to quickly come up to speed? Because you don't need to take a step back salary-wise. But what you can also do is approach it with going for a role that is paying what you used to be on, but just really addressing the elephant in the room. Since I haven't been in the industry, I understand there's been progression in this specific area. What I'm prepared to do is, in my own time, I'm going to be doing a course, or I'd be willing to take a salary drop for a 6-month period during the period that you're mentoring, developing me up on those skills. And once I've hit that 6 months, sit down, have a review. If I'm on the mark, then I want the salary that the position's being advertised at. You do need to be flexible. If there are certain elements that has progressed in your industry that you don't know. For people that have just travelled around Australia for a year, I mean, personally, a year's nothing. I feel like a year's nothing. Longer than that, it's interesting because there's such a perception, and of the longer you've been out, the more, you're not going to be up to speed. You're not going to hit the ground running. So I think it's really important to, when you go for those interviews, is really communicate how you will come up to speed, how in previous roles in your career you might have changed careers into a totally new industry, and how in that role did you come up to speed. So give examples, storytell, really bring that preparation of, I know what you're going to be worried about, I know where the gap is, and address it up front.
So Claire, I'm sitting here, if I was a candidate, and I'm thinking, I've taken 18 months off. I'm feeling really conscious about that. I'm feeling vulnerable. What do I do? There is so many, it's so competitive out there. So in that position, what advice would you be giving me?
First of all, have very clear communication around what that 18 months was about. Clarity around what that time was. It was to be a mum, to look after our kids. It could take, as you said, it's competitive, so it can take 3 to 6 months to get a job. And I think you need to be mentally prepared for that. So during that time, the best thing you can do is do a course. Do a 3-month course that can just really make you feel motivated, keep you alive with knowing that you're adding, new skills onto your CV, so that when you go for an interview, you can say, hey, had 18 months off. While I've been looking for a new role, I've gone and done this course to make sure that my skills are really relevant.
It's a great tip, yep.
And I mean, anyone's going to think, oh gosh, they're motivated to do that. Do that course, have the clarity around why you took the time off, and then I think really manage your confidence, because you will get a lot of roles that you won't even get a response in for, unfortunately, or you won't get the interview, or you get the interview and you don't get to second. It's an amazing, disheartening journey sometimes. So make sure that you're going into it knowing, hey, I'm going to get some knocks, but I've got to keep going. I've got to keep turning up to those interviews. And I haven't had an interview in 7 years. And every interview is a fantastic opportunity to learn how to interview better the next time. And this is why it's so great to work with a recruiter, because first of all, we can set their expectations at the right level. I understand you might be feeling a lack of confidence because you've had the time off, and really support them through that. Identify it, work with their feelings, but also put it at rest. You don't need to have a lack of confidence. You should be confident. Look at your background. Look at what you've achieved in your career. And we will be your representative, talking on your behalf, talking about that gap, really communicating what is next for you in your career and what value you can offer an organisation. So that partnership with a professional recruiter is really valuable.
I was talking to a candidate recently, and he said to me, he was a very seasoned professional, found himself in the market. The business he'd been working for had done a restructure and whatnot. He was very experienced, very well known. And he said it was an opener for him. He'd gone to market, and just going through, I'm not saying this is always the case, but he'd had some experiences of going directly to organisations and not being able to get through to the decision maker, or even having a conversation.
Well, most of the time it's just an AI generated response.
Yeah.
So you'll just keep getting the same response, job application after job application after job application. And that's why working with a professional recruiter is such a different experience. You'll get that human element, that contact, that person at the end of the phone, the feedback that you need. Even if you didn't get the job, you'll get that valuable feedback as to why you didn't get the job, how you can improve for next time, what you need to learn. Is there anything that was missing? Really valuable to get that. Sometimes our clients give us very, very short feedback, and we always push back and say, we need more, because this person has spent their time and energy in coming to meet you. It is really important they walk away with the opportunity to learn why they didn't get the role, so next time they can get it.
Well, he said this was a really confidence building thing for him. He said that working with a recruiter gave him that confidence and gave him that boost when you weren't successful, like you're saying. He had something to prop him back up. But then he also found that, he said, if I didn't go through that and I just had nothing and all I was doing was going direct, with the AI and talking to he said a lot of it was AI in terms of he said you'd feel flat, just really flat. And there was no one there who understood what I was going through who could have propped me back up.
There's no
But that's where the
depth.
recruiters came in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Claire, just back to the topic about values. We spoke about females earlier on in this chat about them coming back to the workforce, and then there's this justification that they need to at times have to validate and ask for that, that pay rise and really, really feel it's justified. What advice would you give them to work through this and to feel the confidence to not to even think like that? Because again, it is a stereotype.
It's actually really fascinating. It's a little bit of imposter syndrome, isn't it? So I had a situation where I had a role in for an organisation just down the road, actually, and the role was paying 120K plus super. And I had two applicants that were very strongly aligned with the experience needed for the role. The female was currently on 90K plus super. The male was on 115, and I said the role is paying 120 to 125K plus super. Time and time again, we see males go, yep, I want the 125, I want the top.
Yeah.
Then the female said, oh, I'm just on 90, 95 would be okay. And we'd recently started, we'd done a lot of training around diversity and inclusion and realised that at the moment there's a 15 to 19% salary gap gender equality problem. So we're still got a long way to go.
Yeah, just the other day I saw it again,
with equality around salaries.
Yep.
Anyway, the role was paying 100 to 120 to 125. So I put both candidates forward saying they could both do the job, please interview. Now, what ended up happening is the female got offered the position, but I didn't let them know what she was currently on. Now, I'm absolutely convinced that if I had said she was on 90K, they probably would have paid her 95 or 100K plus super and went, bargain. But instead, they knew she could do the role. They didn't know what she was on, and she was paid 125K plus super. So overnight, she got a $35,000 pay increase. And when I told her that she had the job, then instantly she felt nervous. Oh, that salary, what does that mean? And still feeling that lack of confidence. And I had to really talk her through, you can do this. They've chosen you because you're the best candidate for this role. They see you as the strongest applicant out of the two.
And they're paying you what they feel it's worth.
And she absolutely burst out crying in happiness and said, the difference you've made in my life is incredible. And she's still in that job today, and that was 2 years ago. So really got to work through that confidence piece, really got to make sure that you understand where that's coming from. And a lot of it is that voice in our heads that kind of can hold us back sometimes. But really having that belief in yourself. And that's where working with a recruitment consultant can really support you in going, actually what I'm worrying about isn't worth worrying about. I can do that role. I do have the skills. I do have the experience. I do have the maturity. And that's exactly what they're looking for from this role.
And you want people to be vulnerable with you because you can help them work through that. Are they going to walk into an interview and feel vulnerable like that? No, they're not. They're going to feel it in themselves. But then you know what they're feeling. You can help coach them and mentor them through that so they can rightly so believe in themselves.
Absolutely. So there is a positive imposter syndrome and negative. And I think it's about really identifying when that negative space is happening for you, that you are talking yourself out of an opportunity or believing in yourself. We typically see males being very comfortable with salary negotiations and even asking for pay increases whilst they're in employment with a company, whereas females will feel very nervous stepping up and saying, I believe I'm worth more, or I'm adding more value. I want to have a discussion around salary. And it's a really healthy conversation to have. So I absolutely encourage it.
I think we'd agree that it's gratifying that there have been improvements in this area, but there's still a long way to go, and it's changing, which is great. But, like we always say, it's regardless of where someone comes from, it's about who's right for the role and paying them what they're worth.
Exactly. And as I said, if I'd said that she was on 90K, she would have been held close to that. So we're not allowing that progression in the industry to happen.
Well, thanks, Claire. This has been a great podcast. Great to chat about the values of people coming out of Christmas, the vulnerabilities of asking for a pay rise or asking themselves the questions that they haven't been asking themselves about what do I want in my career and where do I want the next 6, 12, 18 months to go.
And what's my worth?
And what's my worth? But I'm going to throw a question in for you. What's a funny placement, a placement you'll never forget? What's what comes to mind? I'm sure there's a lot of them, but what's one in particular?
I don't know why, but this one always stands out. It was right at the beginning of my career. I was working for Julia Ross, and I ended up having about 100 contractors working for me, and 80% of them were travellers. So they were on 3-month visas, so constantly placing them into their next contract role. And it was this Irish guy, and I said, look, I've got a data entry job for you, working at level 20, number 1 Oxford Street. On your first day, I'll call you at 9, 12 and 4, just to make sure your first day went well, and then after that I'll call you weekly just to check in. Right, gotcha, yep, sorted. So he starts the next day, I call at 9 o'clock, he's all, yep, I'm here, I'm happy, great. Then he goes to lunch and I call him after lunch and he's panting, like on the phone, like really panting. And I was like, are you okay, Tom? And he's like, I don't know if I can do this contract. My accent is pretty bad. But and I said, what are you talking about? It's your first day. Why can't you do a data entry job? And he goes, oh, Claire, I forgot to tell you. I've got claustrophobia and I can't catch elevators. So this morning I walked up 20 levels and I've just gone to lunch and I've just gone down 20 levels and back up 20 levels. And I don't think I'll be able to do this for 3 months. And my response was, no shit, Sherlock. Like, why didn't you tell me that? So.
And how long was this assignment for?
3 months. He thought he'd get really fit, but,
And he's a young traveller. So, look, luckily he didn't smoke.
I know. But, travellers, they do drink quite a bit sometimes. So
Wow.
You wouldn't want to do that on a hangover day.
Wow.
But I guess what that taught me is make sure you – so now in every interview I always say, is there anything I should know that will hinder your experience in a role? Do you have claustrophobia? I sometimes tell the story as an example just to lighten it up, just to make sure people are just bringing out those elements about themselves that are really important.
Well, thanks, Claire.
You're welcome.
It was great chatting all things career-related in this episode of Payrise, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Make sure you hit the subscribe button. See you next time.